Hi, welcome to week 4 of our Roosters Quilt Along. So this week we are simply trimming up the blocks and I'm going to arrange them in the way that I want them, and I'll be stitching them together and adding borders as well. So this is going to be a really fun, creative time, and this is also the time where you can decide, oh, maybe I want to do a quilt as you go. Or you can, make your quilt any size you want. This is also where you might be like, oh, I want to turn this into a tablecloth or do something wonky with the blocks. The bottom line is that what we're going to do is all of the blocks, I've already done these first 5, but all of the blocks have ample fabric around the design that allows you to control the cutting and how big you make that little edge so that you have a good seam allowance. So I'm cutting my blocks now to within 1/4 inch of the design, the printed design, and that way I can just stick with the 1/4 inch seam allowance that we use in traditional quilting. So I've got my cutting board here. I line up my ruler. I can see through my ruler and just line it up with the 1/4 inch edge. And I'm just gonna trim off this extra fabric and square this whole block up. So as I've shown you in the previous video, I peeled all of the roosters away from their parchment paper where they were built, and now this is all one block, and I'm just trimming it so that everything will match up nicely. The seams will be nice and straight when I go to stitch this together. So one more strip here to cut, and then we're going to lay all of these blocks out on my table here and decide which blocks should be next to each other. And now I'll start sewing. Okay, so there's the final block, and now I'm going to lay all of them out. And you might just want to catch me in a few after I've had a minute to decide the best composition the composition of my quilt. Okay, this is the final composition that I've come up with. I hope you like it. I think this works great. So I have 2 of them facing each other, 2 of them facing away, just alternating all the way down. So I really like this. Now I'm going to start putting right sides together and just stitching along the seams with that 1/4 inch. And I will see you over at the sewing machine. All right, so I have pieced these together, these beautiful blocks together. Look how fun this is. So now I'm ready to add the border, and this is important. I designed this fabric to be, I want it to be sewn on, I want to follow the pattern so that the stripe goes all the way down and then across and all the way back up. So the way to do this is I have recommended 2 yards of the Grasse fabric, which is the stripe fabric. And what I'm doing is I'm just following right along this line. And Amelia, if you can zoom in, that would be really helpful to show where I'm cutting. So I've laid it out on a long table. This is 2 yards of fabric, and I'm going to cut right along. I'm just going to use that green line kind of as the edge, and that will give me enough fabric for the border on the sides. So look at that. It will also be perfect. I can have two identical strips of fabric doing it this way. So this is a great way to use the stripe of the fabric. So I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to keep cutting, and then I'll cut the tops, and we'll talk again in just a second. All right, so I just want to show you what I did. So I cut the length of this, and that is going to create two perfect borders. So pretty awesome, huh? Because it is the same on both sides. I'm so excited about that. Actually, I might on this other side be trimming off that little bit so that it is identical. And then for the top, so these are for the sides of the quilt, and the side borders are just a little bit wider because right now the quilt is kind of tall and skinny, and I want to fix the proportions a little bit. So the side borders are going to be a little bit thicker than the top and the bottom. So I think in the pattern it's like 6.5 inches, and that's approximately what we've got here. And for the top and the bottom, we want less than 4 inches or less. So I have measured this, and let me do a double check. Yeah, so okay. So if I just begin my cut now on this one, between the green and the red right there, that will give me a nice perfect guide for this. And again, it will be identical on the reverse side. So this is designed to be super simple to cut and create some fun borders. So I'm going to just line up. I've got my fabric lined up, obviously, and I need less of this, but I'll go ahead and cut this whole thing, the length of the fabric, just to stay tidy. So this is really, if you have a long cutting surface, that's ideal. Put it on your kitchen table if you have to, with a mat, of course. Don't cut your table, but laying it out like this. And you can honestly cut it with fabric scissors too, because it's got the guide. So you don't even really need to, lay it out to use the rotary cutter. At least not this part, but it is faster for me to do it this way. Oops, oh, I ruined that last end, but that's okay because I've got what I need right here. Let me just double check. I've taped a couple cutting surfaces together so I get a little sloppy, but all I need is enough to go across the top of the quilt, and I think I've got that here. Okay, so that is going to go at the top and the bottom of the quilt, and then I'm going to stitch these pieces along the sides of the quilt. So I'll get that taken care of, and then I'll show you the final pieced top. Be back in a minute. All right, here is my finished quilt top, all pieced, and the seams have been nested in the back so that everything lays nice and flat. And the thing that I want to point out to you that I'm so excited about, the design is such that any arrangement of blocks is going to create this kind of nice on-point diamond with a lot of variety and interest. And you can see that ooh, I'm loving it. I hope you love it too. And I used the border fabric to do these borders, and then I even have a little bit left over so that you can play with it later. Now this is ready to quilt. Just make sure that you have steamed these roosters really good so that the fusible is soft and supple. And next I'm going to take this over to my machine and we're going to talk about quilting it. So we'll see you in the next video.